Hey everyone, welcome back to Ask Amy. Sorry I'm starting a little bit late on this Monday. I got a little caught up in something. So, today I have a question from Pam, and it's a question about the upcoming holidays, which are right around the corner, I think. I don't know, it's crazy, but um, they're on my mind as well. I'm sure they're on many people's minds, and I think we all know that this year the holidays are likely going to be very different than they typically are for many of us. So, that's what Pam's question is about. So she says, thank you for all you do. I'm a big fan and learning so much from your podcast. That's awesome. My question has to do with the holidays coming up in November and December. I want to spend them with my grown children and their families, but I'm afraid because of the COVID situation here in California. My husband and I have been strict about the quarantine, but my children not so much. I'm so torn between being with them and staying away so my husband and I don't expose ourselves. I'm losing sleep and worrying about how it will all work out. Thank you again for all that you do. So, I hear you, Pam. And, you know, what really jumps out at me in your question is I'm torn between because this is what a mind will do, right? A mind will say, well, either I'm going to see my kids and their families and it's going to be kind of like it usually is, or no one's going to, and we're all going to be at risk, or no one's going to see anyone. Everything's going to be different. I'm not saying your mind is doing that, but in general, this is what a mind will do. When our mind pits things as an either or, I'm torn between A or B. It's just really great to see that. It's just good to know, oh yeah, there's a computer in here saying which one do you want, black or white. And as we all know, like those may be two extremes. They may be two options. They're two ends of a spectrum typically, but there's so much that happens in between. And almost always life ends up as something that's not either of those, black or white options. So you say, I'm torn between being with them on the one hand or staying away so that we don't expose ourselves. And so just be curious about that. Be curious about, what is there between those things? How is it? And I'm sure you have, Pam. I know you have already. I'm sure this is some of the stuff that's running through your mind when you're up at night thinking about this already. But when I say be curious, I don't mean, figure it out or think about it or your brain is going to find the solution because it may help. It may be a tool that helps out, but I don't know that it's going to come from that, from figuring and planning and all of that. Look for it to come from a deeper place. Be curious about what you might see that you don't currently see, what your husband might see that he doesn't currently see, about how this might look. And that can feel very passive, I know, but it keeps us in a way like you're still interested, you're still involved, your mind is still there, kind of waiting over here to help you out when needed. But when we just kind of wait in curiosity, in a sense, and we're open and we're like, wow, I wonder what I might see that I don't currently see, it keeps our mind kind of like awake and ready to support, but not like this pouncing needing to figure it out. And we tend to be more open to brand new fresh thought coming through, especially when it's something other than what we already have thought of. It's not the I'm torn between A and B. It's neither of those. But when we're curious and we're more in that place, it's like we can hear and feel things that we may not recognize as the conversation already happening. So I think, Pam, probably many, many people are in this kind of situation. Um, I'm thinking about these things too, and it's interesting. It's tough, I want to say, when people have very different views on things and very different behaviors. But the thing that I think is so helpful is to just listen. So listen to them as much as they're willing to share, as much as you're wanting to ask about why they feel the way they do, what's behind it for them, and let them listen if they will, and if you want to share about how you see things, and not to not to kind of have to come to agree, because you may not, but what we're listening for in a sense is what's behind what's going on. Like what's behind the way that they're living their life and the way that you want to live your life, because what's behind it tends to be so much more similar than how it looks on the surface. So all of us humans are so much more alike than we are different, and our motivations for doing the things we do tend to be, even when what we're doing is very different on the surface, our underlying motivations tend to be very, very similar, very much aligned, very alike, right? So you're doing what makes sense to you, wonderful, and they're doing what makes sense to them, also wonderful, even when those two things are very different things. But when we come at this wanting to listen and hear how they see it and understand it, that puts us again in that open space between these two poles, this or that, where we're just in the unknown, in the big gray area, and we're just curious. Like, oh, you see it that way? Oh, that's interesting. Again, now we're not listening for, okay, let's hash this out so we can figure out what to do on Thanksgiving. We're listening because we love them and we're curious and wow, what's behind it for you? Now, even as I say that, sometimes, especially right now, there's a lot of tension around these differing viewpoints, right? There's a lot of divisiveness happening out in the world, and listening doesn't feel so easy. And sometimes it's just not possible because people don't want to talk about it. So, there's a lot of like, oh, I can't even go there with my family, or I don't want to. That feels dangerous. And that's okay. That's where you are. That's okay. But to the extent that you can listen to them and listen to yourself and what's behind it really for you. I don't mean how you're acting around COVID, but even all of this around the holidays. What's it really about? Like what's most important to you? It's gonna cut beyond a bunch of the he's doing this and she's doing that and what do we do? It's gonna cut deeper than the logistics, and it's gonna tap you into something that I think can help inform. Now, remember, and I think we probably all are going to need this year. Holidays are just holidays. This is what I mean about listen to what's really behind it and really important to us. What's really important to most of us is spending quality time with certain people, showing that we care. I don't know, look at it for yourself, but having that time, having that connection, having that togetherness, that doesn't have to look the way it's always looked, and it won't. It won't this year. So the other piece of this is that we all are going to have to just be super flexible and super open, and that's much easier when we know what really matters. Is what really matters that we sit around a turkey on a specific date, or that we sit around a tree on a specific date? No, that's how it's always looked. So we can get caught up in that. But that's not what it's about. That's not what matters. So when we look deeper at what matters, again, we get super creative because there's all kinds of ways. If you found, Pam, that what matters to you is just having that connection time with your kids and grandkids and having the kids play together or whatever that looks like that's when you get deeper into what really matters. It's going to free you up to see new ways to accomplish that maybe look nothing like they have in years past, um so I think that's a piece of this, and it's going to be, for many of us this year. One thing I'm hearing a lot is people saying things like, well, I can't put them at risk, and I can't, it kills me to think that like I might put these people at risk, or that they're so irresponsible that they might be putting me at risk, and all of that. And I think it's just important for us all to just see every person is doing what makes sense to them given how things look. Now, things look very different to one person versus another, but it's very easy to see someone's outward behavior, and our mind, again, we don't even do this, our mind does it. Our mind makes it, adds a ton of assumptions and puts a ton of meaning, and you're acting this way, therefore dot dot dot. And it's just good, especially when it's our family and we're very invested in liking them and being understanding and having compassion. It's just good to notice that a mind will fill in the blanks. based on your behavior, you don't care about this or you care too much about that or whatever. No, to every single person, their actions make sense given the world that they're living in their own heads. And that's just true across the board. And I think that's maybe the biggest thing that we all need to remember right now to keep that level of understanding and compassion. We will not agree with a lot of what we see, but we can know that that person's doing the best that they can see to do given how it looks to them, even when that the way it looks to them is very different than how it looks to us. So I don't know, Pam. We're all in this. I hope something in this is helpful, but also just notice that right now, and I know you sent this question a while ago, you sent it in August actually. In August, in September, in October, for it to be on your mind and keeping you up and you're worried about it now, none of that's helpful. That's just your mind trying to work it out, but you're going to find some answers. You're going to come together. The holidays will happen. You'll have some degree of interaction with them, right? However that looks, and it'll come from beyond the spinny worry. Like get curious about that open space beyond the this versus that. So thank you so much, Pam, for sending your question. Everyone, send your questions, whatever they're about, habits, anxiety, how our experience works, anything around what's happening in the world, anything at all, to AskAmy at thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll be back here every Monday to answer them. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week.